Okay, Toothless is back with hafus in Japan. You know what a hafu is? It's a mixed race. Half black, half Japanese. So let's listen what they got to say over there about the
It's
topic.
culturally and ethnically homogeneous, with over 98% of Japanese citizens being considered ethnic Japanese. And comparatively speaking, there is only a very small proportion of citizens who are either non-Japanese or have mixed Japanese blood known as hafus. While many who are born in Japan speak Japanese and contribute to the Japanese economy, their Japaneseness is contested and considered by many as not being fully Japanese. But this creates both unique challenges and unexpected advantages. To understand better what they actually face, today we're going to meet three Hahu Japanese to discuss their experiences of living in Japan. Curious? Let's meet our guests and talk more. Thanks for joining us today. To start things off, would you introduce yourself to everyone?
My name is Shunki Egawa, and I'm turning 27. I'm a musician.
I'm Seon Tanaka. I'm currently 19 years old, and I am a fashion model for a living.
In my 20s, and I'm currently a PhD student.
So we brought you all in today because you're considered Hahu. Before we start things off, would you explain what Hahu means?
Well, half is a term used in Japan that describes someone who is half Japanese and half another country. So my other half is from Bahamas. I was born and raised in Bahamas for 15 years, so I spent basically my whole life there. And then since I'm only 19 now, I've only been here for 4 years from high school.
I'm half Italian, but I was born and raised in the US, so I don't know anything about Italy.
Mine is Korean. I was born and raised in Korea. I stayed there for 20 years,
Wow.
so I actually didn't have that much chances
Fish
to
sticks
speak
and
Japanese.
ketchup.
So are you considered a foreigner in here because of your background?
I don't think, because of how I look, they don't really treat me as a foreigner, because they don't really recognize me as a hafu unless I tell them. So but right after I tell them, they kind of treat me as a foreigner kind of bit.
And you?
I would say for me, I'm probably like the complete opposite. So at first, people would think that I'm like full foreigner, but when I start speaking Japanese, then they would understand that, oh, okay, well, he can speak Japanese, so that means he must be half. And then I get treated more like a Japanese person,
And your family name is Tanaka.
which is very Japanese. Every time I go to like the doctor's office, because they would call you by your last name, like everyone would be stunned because they don't expect me to stand up when they call Tanaka. They might think that I'm like Johnson or like, some other thing. Yeah.
I know it's a bit too personal question, but how did your parents meet? Do you know about that?
I heard that my mom and dad met in Korea, and my mom translated for him, because she spoke Japanese and Korean both.
So my mom was in the entertainment section of a hotel, so she would always have to be moved around to different countries, and then she eventually ended up
Talking about hafus in Japan.
in Bahamas,
On Toothless.
where she like met my dad, and then they got along and they started dating, and then they got married. They got married first, and then like a few years down the line, then they had me.
And how about you?
I think my mom and dad met in Hawaii. And my mom was on vacation in Hawaii, and I think my dad was working at the hotel, but they met, I think their groups of friends came together, and I think my dad asked my mom for her. I don't know. I guess not digits, because I don't think they had So I think my mom went back to Japan after her trip to Hawaii, and they wrote letters back and forth. And I think he proposed to her in a letter.
Wow! Goosebumps!
Yeah.
Whoa!
Surprise.
Right? And then she went to Hawaii, they got married, and I
Whoa.
was born.
So, how did your grandparents reacted to your parents' love?
hearing from like my mom, like stories from my mom, like she said that she didn't feel very welcomed by my dad's parents, especially my grandma. I guess like they were kind of, Italians tend to also keep the Italian bloodline as well.
see.
Like Italian is like a very long history, and like they tend to have like a lot of pride about being Italian. So I think the fact that my dad chose to marry outside of that, it was a little difficult for them to accept. I don't think that they said it directly, but I think my mom just felt isolated a lot of the times. And yeah.
I just heard that my mom's side grandparents, they hated about the marriage because they're Koreans, and Koreans always had this conflict between Japan and Korea. So like, yeah,
Yes, they
I heard
did.
that they really had a difficult time.
They sure did.
So like, my grandparents, my mom's grandparents, they didn't wanted to see my parents until they got the first child, which is my older brother. So my older brother was the trigger to get along.
My family inside of Bahamas, like they didn't really care that much because they're island people. So they're like a big family. My dad is is like inside of a family of 6. So he has 2 other brothers and 3 sisters. So to the Bahamian people, they were just like, oh, just more family. But to my Japanese side, they heavily disagreed with it. So like around the start, my dad actually received like a blood sign letter from my granddad. So as in like he cut his finger and then like sealed the envelope with his blood and said like, leave my daughter alone. But my dad was just like, oh well, that's okay. my dad didn't even like think twice about it. He was just like, nah, I'm still gonna be with her.
Oh my
So
God.
so there was that.
He's
And-
so cool.
Yeah, my dad was just like chill about it. He did because he was just focused on like my mom. So even when he came to Japan a lot of times before their marriage, like my grandparents over here, like they would just not be home at the time that they came. So like my dad and my granddad met each other for the first time at like my dad's marriage, at the marriage. My granddad asked my dad the question, you must hate me so much. Like you must really hate me because you haven't, like I'm always avoiding you and stuff. But my dad responded with, how can I hate someone I've never met? Right?
Well,
So since then they understood like their philosophies, I guess, are like the same. And then they became like best friends. I don't know why. They went from avoiding to like being best friends. And then even until my granddad like passed away, like the last person he wanted to speak to was like my dad because they were just like that close. And that was, like, sort of-
his actual daughter?
well, I mean, his daughter was there too, but like, it's just that my dad and him, they just like really got along, like just that good.
Well, do you feel like there are more and more half people in Japan?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like
I
I've
said,
seen- yeah.
Like the kids,
Yeah.
the kids.
I'm seeing a
half
lot
the
of
kids
kids.
more.
Yeah.
Why do you think like that's happening?
Is it just because like Japanese people actually admires the half
Yeah.
and the half kids
Get a
are
half
really
kid.
cute and like they really expect the half kids to be good looking, cute, pretty.
I also think like more people are coming into Japan too.
That's
So like there's just
true.
like more races, there's more opportunity to meet new people, and I think Japanese people are also venturing
Yeah.
outside of Japan more than before. That's my opinion. I don't know, but I think so. So I think there's just like more opportunity to meet different kinds of people, and I think it's also becoming, I think, more accepted. You know, to have mixed couples and mixed kids, and I think it's just maybe just increasing.
I see. And yeah, like when we
That's
turn
good.
on the TV in here, we see so many half models, right?
Like you said, like they're on TV and stuff often, but I feel like the half people who are on TV are those pretty
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
people.
yeah.
So it's not necessarily that we all half people are beautiful. It's
Yeah.
just like Japanese or any other race.
Yeah, it's a seriously, seriously. It's okay. No, every time when I tell them that I'm a half, people will be like, oh. What's the reaction supposed to mean?
here on Toothless.
But
heard
true,
it
though,
on
like,
Toothless.
they really expect the half people to be good looking or pretty. And when the person's not actually that pretty or good looking, the people will have a weird reaction about that.
Is there any half hierarchy here in Japan?
It's like a lot of my friends are half Filipino and half Japanese, and they said that they were envious of the fact that I'm half Italian because they feel that they have to hide their Filipino side because they feel that they're not accepted as.
Well, you heard it here live on Toothless. Hafus. Just think about it. If you was Hafu, what side would you be on? But I guess it don't matter what side you're on, as long as you are on something. So